Okay, picture this. It's August 2026. You open your phone, scroll through your feed, and what do you see? The internet is literally drowning in automated noise. You're reading articles and posts that are grammatically flawless, incredibly well-structured, perfectly lit, and yet completely empty. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are breaking down a fascinating framework by Abdullah Abid on how to future-proof your brand and maintain your personal identity in the age of AI. We're going to learn how to stop competing with algorithms on sheer speed and start leveraging our messy, highly specific human experiences.
Here is our roadmap for unpacking this today. First, we'll explore the AI commodity trap. Then, we'll define your proof of humanity. Next, we'll look at the 70-30 workflow, followed by an intent-based SEO strategy. And finally, we'll wrap things up with building the human moat.
All right, let's jump right into the immediate problem with Section 1, the AI commodity trap.
Walk through literally any niche today, fitness, finance, marketing, real estate, and you will find a massive flood of AI-generated content. It's pumping out thousands of near-identical posts every single week. But the result? It's perfect, but entirely empty. We are squarely entering the digital uncanny valley. You know that feeling, right? Reading an incredibly polished post that somehow manages to say absolutely nothing. Because it's getting cheaper to produce every single month, its actual market value is just plummeting. And the audiences? Well, they've definitely noticed. There's a growing, almost physical wariness toward content that reads as a bit too smooth. When there's zero friction, no specificity, and no distinct point of view, that flawless content doesn't read as aspirational anymore. It just reads as highly suspicious and, frankly, fake.
Abdullah Abid hits the nail on the head here. He says AI can mirror your voice. What it cannot do is live your life. This is the absolute core thesis of our explainer today. An algorithm simply cannot fail the way you failed. It cannot recover the way you recovered. It doesn't carry the specific scar tissue that shaped exactly how you view your industry. Look, in a world where anyone can generate a polished blog post in 10 seconds flat, your specific scar tissue and your very real human failures have suddenly become your absolute most valuable strategic assets.
Think about it. People are now scrolling past these perfectly optimized generic personas the exact same way they scroll past an obvious targeted ad. But the real risk for creators isn't just that AI is going to outright you. The danger is actually a lot subtler. It's the danger of letting a language model quietly erase your unique brand voice. When you lean on AI to draft your actual opinions, your voice naturally drifts toward the statistical average of every single other person using that exact same tool. You don't necessarily lose to AI, you just kind of dissolve into it.
So how does this affect your actual visibility? Because search engines are actively rewarding the exact opposite of that generic average. This brings us to Google's EEAT framework: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. In today's landscape, this is functioning less like a nice-to-have guideline and way more like a hard ceiling. Search engines are aggressively capping sites that lack visible, verifiable human experience. Honestly, it doesn't matter how well-written your automated content is. If the system cannot verify the human heartbeat and lived experience behind it, your reach is going to be severely limited.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, your proof of humanity. I actually want to ask you to think about your own specific messy mistakes for a second. Those times you rushed to launch or completely misjudged a market. Those are the exact stories an AI would naturally try to sanitize.
Consider the difference here. Saying traffic dropped 40% is cold, hard data. Sure, it appeals to the analytical brain, but the earned insight? That's you frantically refreshing your analytics dashboard every 10 minutes in a cold sweat, checking every single report and, maybe briefly considering blaming the intern. That is visceral storytelling. It's sensory, it's totally imperfect, and it is highly relatable. While numbers might convince someone logically, it's that sensory, hard-earned insight that actually builds deep, unshakable trust with an audience.
So how do we actually put this into practice? Abid provides a great step-by-step strategy to resist AI's tendency to round our stories toward the safe and vague. Step 1. Name specific, messy failures. Don't just say communication is key. Talk about that specific client you underbid because you are utterly terrified to ask for your actual worth. Step 2. Connect data to feeling, just like we saw with that analytics panic. And Step 3. Shift from information to earned insight. Literally anyone can prompt a listicle of 10 tips. What AI absolutely cannot generate is the insight you only get from running a real experiment, watching it completely implode in a way no guide warned you about and having to adjust on the fly. That is exactly what readers are searching for.
So how do we find the balance? That brings us to Section 3, the 70-30 workflow. Now, I want to be super clear here. We are not rejecting AI, not at all.
We are simply demoting it from creative director to research assistant.
Here is your hard, statistical anchor rule to scale your brand without diluting your credibility. 30% of the work belongs to AI for research and structure, but the remaining 70%, the massive piece of the pie, must remain distinctly human. That 70% contains your claims, your framing, your unique position, and your final edit. This ratio mirrors exactly what separates the brands that survive massive algorithm updates from the ones that get completely flattened by them.
To get really practical, here is exactly which tasks you should be handing off. Use AI as a high-speed engine for gap analysis and outlining. Let AI take one deeply personal, well-researched piece of your content and repurpose it into a dozen different formats, like short scripts, carousel posts, or newsletter blurbs. This multiplies your reach immensely. But, and this is the absolute most critical rule, keep AI entirely away from your opinions and final edits. The exact moment an algorithm starts deciding what you think, rather than just helping you organize what you already think, your brand begins to erode.
Now let's tackle Section 4, Intent-Based SEO Strategy. The digital landscape has evolved so rapidly, and SEO has moved way past simple keyword density into intent-based authority.
To win today, we have got to move beyond keyword stuffing. Today's search engines and AI answer systems use retrieval augmented generation. Basically, they pull from sources they judge as trustworthy and synthesize an answer. So your goal is to build topical maps rooted in your own personal case studies. Anchor your site around a small number of themes that you can credibly own, backed by your documented lived experience. You do this by investing in deep-form cornerstone content. Long, thorough pieces that require you to have actually done the hard work are the hardest things for AI to replicate. Because let's face it, AI has no equivalent of, I tried this and here's exactly what went wrong.
Notice the stark contrast between traditional tactics and future-proof strategies here. With non-branded SEO, your goal is to rank for a keyword once, which gives you one-time traffic. But look at branded entities. The goal here is to become a trusted, repeatedly cited source. When you create a named framework, a very specific phrase you consistently use to describe your approach, you give those AI answer engines a clean, citable concept. The result? Your authority compounds over time, and it becomes incredibly difficult for a competitor, whether human or AI, to displace you, because people are searching for your specific framework.
This brings us to our final section, building the human moat. Because while anyone with an internet connection can outpublish you using AI, almost no one can outrelate you.
So the crucial takeaway here is that content is only half the equation. The other half is presence. You need to design a multi-platform strategy that focuses intensely on connection over mere distribution. Leverage community spaces, forums, and live Q&As. Why? Because these spaces generate a real-time two-way relationship that simply cannot be scraped, summarized, or reproduced by an algorithm. Both users and search systems are treating user-generated first-person spaces as vastly more trustworthy than highly polished brand content. By doing this, you plan for long-term resilience, anchoring your brand in actual human relationships rather than just endlessly chasing the mechanics of this week's algorithm update. I really want to end this explainer by leaving you with a lingering, provocative question. If you stopped publishing today, would your audience even notice? The creators who are impossible to displace aren't the ones publishing the highest volume of content. They're the ones whose audience would genuinely miss them if they disappeared. Remember, the fact that AI has made generic content nearly free isn't a threat. It is actually your greatest advantage. Your specific scars, your trial and error, your unique perspective, that is the one input absolutely no model can fake. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Start leveraging your lived experience today, and I'll catch you in the next one.